agenda up. There we go.
Good. So we'll start with the call to order and roll call. And since we're both here,
Tyler, here.
good, so am I. So that's two of us. Pledge of Allegiance. So Steve, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Everybody please stand. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic,
Which is stands
one nation,
One nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I lost the agenda.
Oh,
Okay. Approval of the agenda,
So move.
second. So it's been approved. Approval of the minutes.
Approve. So move.
Okay, so I approve, and so they've been approved. Public forum. Interested public members may provide comment to the subcommittee on any subject not on the agenda by submitting written comments via the city website. Comment entries will only be available during the meeting. Commenters may state their names and address for the record and limit the remarks to 3 minutes or less, which is approximately 300 words or less, or the amount of time as designated by the subcommittee. City staff will monitor the comments, read aloud the comments during the meeting. As approved at the subcommittee, this meeting will be conducted with professionalism. Profanity or vulgar language will not be read. As an unagendized item, no response is required by the subcommittee or staff. However, the subcommittee may request staff to agendize item for a future meeting. So do we have any comments, written comments?
No, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Hi, Vice Mayor and Council Member. No, we don't have any comments right now in the inbox.
Okay,
I've been checking
thank
it.
you. Good, thank you. So then we're gonna go to number 6, business items, community development block grants, CDBG funding. So first, who's gonna be presenting?
I'm going to give a quick PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll look at the actual allocations in a spreadsheet.
Okay, and so what I'd like to do is I don't know who's hosting the meeting, hosting by the physical part of it, but what I'd like to make sure is that as we get questions, that who's ever physically hosting it, if they can, I'd like to ask you to please raise your hands, your virtual hands, and who's ever hosting will keep track of those as they come in. But I want you to get through your whole presentation, Sharon, and then we can go back and have those questions asked. But I do want you to be able to get through whatever presentation you have, and then we can go from there. So is that Adam? Is that who I thought it was? As the host?
Well, No, both
says-
Mike and Robert are doing the technical part of things.
Okay, so as long as
Just pulling things. Yes.
Well, so on mine it says hosting manager. Oh, it says housing. So who's hosting?
I think Mike has given it over to me and Robert, because later on I'm going to be pulling up the spreadsheet. So we've got the PowerPoint now. Is that okay?
Well, as long as I know who's hosting it, So I know this one person is responsible for keeping track. So that person knows
Yeah.
to do that. Okay.
Yes. Okay, yeah, Mike is doing that.
Okay, good. Thank you. So go right ahead.
Okay, yes. All right, thank you. Yeah, so I'll just let Mike know when to move on to the next slide. Oh, okay. Okay, Mike is watching who's raising hands, so.
Okay.
All right. Just to clarify that, I know there's different responsibilities of different parts of the Zoom.
Sure.
Yes. So we can go on to the next slide. That's to today's meeting. At the last meeting on May 21st, the subcommittee directed staff to report back with an outline of new CDBG flexibilities, what activities are eligible under the normal CDBG rules, and to survey how surrounding cities are distributing their CDBG and CDBG coronavirus funds. And we also received direction to explore the possibility of working with current or new applicants to meet some of the goals you see there. So for example, for housing, that could include rent relief and supporting individuals and families experiencing homelessness. Senior services, that could include access to Wi-Fi devices and technical assistance to help counter social isolation. And domestic violence, that could include teaching students healthy relationships and domestic violence prevention and education. And small business, that's something that's being talked about quite a bit, to assist them and also to assist micro enterprise organizations. And also talked about food delivery and how we can work together with the school district to provide assistance to the students and their families. So next slide. Okay. So federal regulations, HUD, they set some restrictions on how the funds can be used and for what types of activities. To be a CDBG eligible activity, it must meet a national objective, and you'll see that in the next slide. For the CARES Act, which established the additional funding for CDBG, they would like those funds to be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. So here's a quick list of the eligible activities from actually the Code of Federal Regulations. So these are the activities that the federal government has established to be eligible under CDBG. And the highlighted ones are the activities being considered in Milpitas. And this year, we're actually considering a couple more activities. For example, the special economic activities and micro enterprise assistance. That's for the small business assistance program. And then the interim assistance, rent relief actually falls into this category. So we're adding more activities this year for City of Milpitas. Okay. Next slide. And here's just a list also from the Code of Federal Regulations. The federal government has listed these activities as not being eligible under CDBG. And next slide. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, CDBG activities must meet one of the following national objectives. One is to provide benefits to low and moderate income persons. The second one is to eliminate or prevent slum or blight. And the third one is often called urgent need. So for the third one, HUD has actually given clear guidance that this objective cannot be applied to CDBG-CV funding because it is currently reserved for natural disaster response efforts. And plus, this can only be used if there's no other financial resources available at all to meet such needs. And then for For the second national objective, the city will have to identify areas that meet the definition of a slum, blighted, deteriorated area under state or local law. Because Milpitas has not identified such areas, that has not been one of our national objectives. So Milpitas has been meeting the objective benefiting low and moderate income persons for all of our CDBG funded activities over the years. And that is the primary objective of the CDBG program. So that's what we'll continue to try to meet with all of our activities. Okay. And you've heard this before from our prior council and subcommittee presentations. In a normal year, HUD sets caps on the proportion of the CDBG funds that can be spent on different types of activities. Capital projects are capped at 65%. Public services are capped at 15%, and administration is at 20% of the annual formula allocation. Next slide. Okay. Now, under the CARES Act, funds are used for coronavirus response. And the CARES Act has modified some CDBG policies and procedures to increase the speed and flexibility to respond to the pandemic. So one thing they have done is that the CARES Act has eliminated the 15% cap of the funds that can be used for public services. So this means that the subcommittee and the council could allocate more of the formula funding that typically would be reserved for capital projects for COVID-19 related activities this year. So this flexibility applies only if the allocation are used for COVID-19 related activities. If they're allocated to non-COVID related activities, then they will have to meet the 15% cap again for public services and 65% of capital projects. Okay. As mentioned, the CARES Act has been providing more flexibility for CDBG. They have provisions that allow for easier citizen participation and public hearing for a consolidated plan and annual action plan. Cities may amend the citizen participation plans to establish expedited procedures to amend the consolidated plans. For example, the public comment period can be 5 days, and in-person public hearings are not required. They allow us to conduct virtual meetings. In order to distribute the coronavirus funding rapidly, HUD also will allow jurisdictions to amend the current, so that's fiscal year 1920 annual action plan, in order to allocate the CDBG-CV funds rapidly. HUD's guidance has been that amending the already approved annual action plan is the most efficient way to allocate the funds to jurisdictions. So staff, we expect, this is from talking to our HUD representative, we expect these funds, the CV funds, to be available approximately 2 weeks after submitting the council-approved amendment to HUD. And then the regular formula funds, and actually Robert has been able to find unused funding from prior years and confirmed with our HUD representative that we'll be able to use it this year for COVID-related activities. So the formula funds and the prior year funding, they follow more of the regular timeline, whereas after we submit to HUD, they'll transfer the funding in fall. Usually, from past experience, that's around October. But the CV funds is the one that HUD wants to make it available to jurisdictions very quickly by amending the current year annual action plan. Okay. So here's a survey that we conducted of how other cities have been using CDBG funds. These are the cities in Santa Clara County. And this is a list based on the number of cities that have allocated funds to these uses. As you can see, a number of cities have allocated for rent relief. A number of cities have done this for homeless prevention, senior services, and also small business assistance also. And then you see emergency repairs, food access, and shelter, hotel vouchers as some other uses that our neighboring jurisdictions have been using CDBG funding for. Okay, next slide. All right. So HUD allows for up to 20% of CDBG funds to be set aside for administrative costs. And that includes fair housing services, which has been provided by Project Sentinel for the city, and also includes the overall CDBG program administration by city staff. In prior years, the city has allocated and has used up all the CDBG administration 20% set aside for both funding for Project Sentinel and the city cost. And the city cost covers staff time that's associated with outreach, education, application process, technical assistance for applicants, preparing for meetings and public hearings, coordinating with other departments and agencies, creating plans and progress reports, and preparing documentation and reporting, performing accounting and financial reporting, and doing other tasks that are related to the HUD compliance. And this year, staff has spent more time and anticipates spending more time too than prior years because of the need to respond to COVID-19 needs, to understand new compliance rules and flexibilities, and to design new programs such as the Small Business Assistance Program. Also, this year, Project Sentinel has requested $56,290. Later on, you'll see that in the spreadsheet. They request that for fair housing services. That's an increase from prior years, but also want to note that in prior years, the city has funded a portion of Project Sentinel's services, actually it's by a combination of CDBG and Housing Authority Fund. So for all of these reasons that we anticipate staff having to spend more time this year because of the new rules and new programs, staff will recommend that the subcommittee distribute 20% of the CDBG funding to cover both Project Sentinel and program administration by the city. So we'll do that when we get to the spreadsheet also. Okay. Okay, so here's kind of a summary of all the funding that's available. Yes.
Sharon, yeah, just so thank you so far. I just want to check with the council member to see, because I know you have lots of slides. Do you have any questions up to this point, council member?
Not at this time. Thanks for asking. Checking in.
You're welcome. Go right ahead now, Sharon.
Okay, thank you. So this is kind of a quick snapshot of the summary of the funding that's available for allocation. The CDBG-CV funding, that's the supplemental funding that we've received so far from the CARES Act to be used for COVID-19 purposes, and that's $397,911. And then the middle column, that's the prior year funding I mentioned earlier that Robert was able to secure and verify with our HUD representative. These are funding from prior years, actually from fiscal year 14-15 through 18-19, that we've verified we'll be able to use it this next fiscal year for COVID-19 related activities as well. And that amount is another $290,039. And the number to your right, that is the normal, the CDBG formula funding that we get. And that was a number that HUD had given to us, I think it was on February 25th. And that's the amount we got this year for Milpitas is $676,413. So you can see the total there is about $1.36 million to be allocated. Okay. So here's kind of our estimate of the next steps. That today there'll be funding recommendations from the subcommittee. And tomorrow night, that's already on the council agenda, will be the Small Business Assistance Program and the Rent Relief Program update. And both of those will be seeking council direction on the funding source for the rent relief, the funding amount as well. And I think council is still being polled for 2 more dates in June for 2 more council meetings. So if those dates are going forward, our estimate is that we'll be able to bring forward the amended 1920 annual action plan, because as I mentioned earlier, that's the way to expedite receiving the CV funding. And then we'll be bringing forward the annual action plan for next year's allocation also. So the plan is to bring that forward to council on June 23rd, and that'll be a really, really quick turnaround this week to do that. And then we need to make amendments to the consolidated plan as well, based on the additional or new activities and priorities as a result of the discussion today. We anticipate having to make substantial amendments to the consolidated plan and citizen participation plan. And because those are really large documents, we want to make sure we're doing an adequate job and a thorough job that we can submit to HUD. So we're kind of just wanting to make sure we do it right and then go to council on the 30th for those documents. And they will be consistent with the annual action plan that you'll see on June 23rd, because all based on the same set of council directions. So, okay, so that's the presentation. Any questions?
Council member?
So I have just a clarification questions before we move into the spreadsheet. I know that there's been a conversation about we would have to reopen the application period if we wanted new service providers. So I don't know if I missed the slide, but I didn't see that on one of the slides, but it's okay. I just had a clarifying question. If we were to allocate some funding, would we be able to allocate it to the city of Milpitas to provide those services, or does it have to be a third party? Was there any changes that the government did regarding just because of COVID-19 and provide some flexibility for that?
Yeah, actually, not because of COVID-19, but the city would be able to be our own applicant, so to speak.
Oh.
And in fact, we had reached out to our colleagues in other departments, and after the subcommittee reviews this, and if that's the recommendation, they can submit applications as well.
So
and
I guess,
just kind of
sorry,
go ahead.
So I guess my question would be, if we would submit the application, would we have to reopen the period, or if we didn't reopen it, would the city of Milpitas still be able to be considered, because technically we're already the applicant with CDBG funding?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna kind of mention. The HUD regulations actually provides a variety of approaches. You can take a formal application process, limited application process, or they call this open door application process, or even a mixed approach. And with the COVID-19 and the quick response that's needed, we'll be able to do kind of this mixed approach. And with the open door application process, I think, if the subcommittee reached consensus today, then we can have the new applicants that, you will talk about later to submit application and turn that around pretty quickly because we're trying to get the annual action plan to council. And then if anybody needs to amend the application, we can just do that basically in the next, day and a half. At the same time, staff will work concurrently on the annual action plan so that we can take everything to council next Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So Sharon, two things. One is, I just want to make sure that that answer would be for then any entity we selected. So it could be ourselves, it could be the school district, it could be another nonprofit. That's, as opposed to going out, we could make those type of selections, number one.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then two, when you said next Tuesday, like next week, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, we'll be working
Okay.
at the speed of light. Yes.
Okay. No, I was just wondering. Okay. Okay. Then let's go to the spreadsheet.
Okay. So give me a second to pull that up. Okay, let me see if I can share screen. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Do you need it bigger?
I could make mine bigger.
Yeah, just a little slightly.
Okay.
How about now?
That looks good. Bob,
Okay.
does that work for you?
Yep, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. I'll just kind of go over the format of the spreadsheet first. So column A, of course, that's the applicant, and column B is their proposed activities. And then column C, I'll just highlight. I guess you guys can see the highlight? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So column C, as we mentioned, that is the formula funding that we had being allocated from HUD of $676,000. And this can be used for COVID or non-COVID. Column D, that's the supplemental funding from the CARES Act to be used for COVID-related response, and that's $397,911. Now, column E, this is the amount that we have secured from prior years that totaled $290,039. And column F is basically the sum of these three columns. So these are the columns we'll be basically working through today to fill out the allocation of what amount, from which bucket. And then F is a formula that's summing that up. Now, column G, this is the applicant requested amount that we have seen from the last meeting. We just kind of clean it up a little bit, and I have it more as a grayed out because these are the numbers being considered versus the number we're going to be typing in, into columns C and E are the amounts that you guys are allocating. And then the last column is for reference. This column I, that's last year, or I should say current year's 1920 allocated amounts to the nonprofits. And we had included an attachment with a report that basically shows that we looked at their 6-month performance, and they've been pretty much on target in meeting the goals for fiscal year 1920. Okay, and if I can go down to, here's the administration area. This is the portion we had talked about earlier. And wanted to see if the subcommittee would like the city to try to allocate the 20% maximum that would cover both fair housing services by Project Sentinel and the city administration cost. So to give you some guidance, I have pre-calculated some numbers. Okay, so for example, you see this is the 56,290 is the request amount from Project Sentinel. Now, if we were to put that amount there, and then the 20% of 676,000, that comes out to 135. And that will leave the city 78,993. So hopefully I'm making sense. So this 135,000 is 20% of 676. Yeah.
So now we're getting way down in the weeds. So maybe for my sake first, if you back up just a little bit, going to the full 20% will allows for what? Maybe for Project Sentinel. I need to understand it just a little bit better before you give me the numbers, because I'm going to get lost in those numbers, I think. And I apologize, council member, because I just need to understand a little bit better before you get me to the numbers.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, so if you could just quickly, they got 10,000 last year. Is that what you're saying? And this year you want to go to 56,000?
Yes, last year they got 10,000 from CDBG, and actually 40,000 from the Housing Authority Fund. So we got to just start this transition last year. All the years before, the city have funded only 10,000 from CDBG. But last year,
so the amount's not changing, just where the funding comes from?
The source, correct. Yes, I know starting last year, council has placed a lot more emphasis on tenant services and tenant support. So we've been working with Project Sentinel a lot more. They've been providing lots of workshops, drop-in clinics, and confidential, free confidential counseling for our residents. So all of this additional services last year was being part of it was being funded out of the Housing Authority Fund. And this year, they just requested for the amount all from CDBG.
Okay. So so that helps me with that. Is that true for the next line also? The program administration? That the total doesn't change.
Yeah. So I know I probably talked too quickly when I talked about that program administration slide earlier. So Project Sentinel is providing the fair housing services, and HUD considers them to be a fair housing service provider for cities. And so that's one part of administration. Another part of administration is the actual city staff time in administering the CDBG program. So for example, the time we spend doing outreach and education with our applicants, the application review process, providing technical assistance, preparing for meetings and public hearings, coordinating with other departments and outside agencies, and creating these annual action plans, consolidated plans, and doing the reporting to HUD along with the accounting and the financial reporting, making sure we comply with all the HUD requirements. Those are all part of the city staff time in administering the program. So that's what that is.
Okay. And the dollars had been coming from housing. It rightfully could come from CDBG, therefore allowing more dollars in the housing fund to be used there, correct?
I'm sorry, can you say it again?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to, so the dollar amount really isn't going to increase. We're just going to take it from the fund where it really should be coming from. But
yes,
the net effect is we're going to have more housing dollars left to use in the way we could use housing dollars, as opposed to using those over here in administration. So really, for me, it's just a funding change. And I just want to make sure that I'm not missing something, because the total cost isn't changing. We're not adding staff. We're just funding it from a different source.
yeah,
and if I have that wrong, I just need to hear that.
Okay. Well, I guess, if you look at last year's program administration, the 111,000. So all the staff that work on CDBG, including myself, will charge time to that. And because recently we've been spending more time, right, because of the new COVID-19 rules and regulations and understanding all of that, we actually just got a message yesterday that we have already maxed out on it. And this next year, because of more, COVID-19 compliance that we want to make sure we meet, and also to develop the new small business assistance program and making sure that meets HUD requirements, which is anticipating, really needing the program administration dollars to cover staff time.
Okay.
Hopefully that's clear. Sorry if I didn't really answer your question.
No. Like I said, I'm just trying to understand it. So, and you've done that. So I understand it better now. So thank you. Councilmember, did you have any questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. If I may kind of just finish this program administration, the reason of doing that is, just to seek your direction if you would like program administration, out of CDBG to be used for funding staff time versus general fund, for example. So now that we did it for the formula funds, this is the 20%. HUD also allows 20% of the CV funding to be used for program administration. So that's 20% of the 397,911. So I'm going to type it in just to show you the number I had calculated. And that is the 20% of 397,000. And then for the prior years, because they were from prior years, so the administrative cost was used already. Therefore, you don't have any allocation for that. So this is kind of what I wanted to review first.
So I want to give you the first opportunity, council member, and then I'll jump in.
So I understand column C, and I'm okay with the program administration for both ends. The program administration for column D of 79,000, that would be to also cover staff time and stuff like that, Sharon, for the same thing, or would that help alleviate other lines in the general fund, or is it the same lines? Like the same line items?
It's alleviating, it's alleviating general fund. It's the same for program administration, yes. We're just distinguishing between the, three buckets, because the prior years, we cannot use it.
Understood. So,
them out.
Okay, so basically in the prior years, we didn't get this, and now we can.
Well, no, prior years, the program administration was used already.
Oh,
but these were prior year funding balance, yes, that Robert was able to locate in the system, and we added them up to another 290 we could use, yes, but not for program administration because that was done in prior years already.
Oh, got it. And that's why, is that why column E is at 0?
Correct.
Okay, I'm following. All right, so in terms of program administration, so and then the balance would be, so I understand it. I think for me, what I also would like to go through is, and just for the record, I may have to have a hard stop at 3:20 and step out if we're still in the meeting. I don't know, Vice Mayor, just I don't know how we're going to be able to do that, but no. I do have another engagement at 3:30 that I must be at, and if I guess what I would like to do, because I want to see what we could fund in the actual applicants before I commit to anything in the program administration. I have a feeling it will be fine. But I just, I want to be respectful of those who have been with us before and make sure that those allocations happen. And then I think I would feel better with doing program administration for column D and E if needed.
So, so Councilmember, I agree because, I'm going to go with you at 3:20, maybe not with you, but I'm going to leave too, because I looked at column G and it now has a minus in front of it. So I know we have to go back up these columns. So Sharon, you and Steve, just know that at 3:20, we do have a hard stop. So you use your time accordingly. But I have great faith in you.
Sharon, that means we're going to finish at 3:20. Okay, we need to get consensus from the Vice Mayor and the council member.
We'll do at 3:19. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. So maybe we can.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because this part kind of affects general fund, and I know that's of great concern to council, and we didn't really get to talk about it last time. I just want to get through that. So I don't know if the subcommittee would like to start with capital first, because there's a cap we cannot exceed, and then work backward to the public services. Would you like to do it that way?
This is my question. Sorry, my question would be, now the money from capital projects though could be invested on the top column, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So these are the requested amounts. And here are the columns for you guys to decide how much to put where.
But could we, Vice Mayor, I would feel a little more comfortable if maybe we start with the top column and it's like our wish list, because it sounds like we could use some of that capital project money to increase the costs on the first set. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
So you want to start from the top, right? That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to start from the top.
All right. All right, so first one, this is the request from Catholic Charities. And by the way, they're all on the calls too, if you need to ask them questions.
Okay.
So 20,523.
Sharon,
Yeah.
can you note that all the
That
columns are almost identical from
Huh?
the ask? Can you note that the columns, that G and is that I? Yeah, G and I
Yes.
are they're pretty much
Yeah.
identical. Yeah,
Current year
let's point
and
that out.
last year, yes, they're
Right.
very close, correct. And these were the amounts the applicants have applied for under the formula
Right.
funding. Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I don't, I think, and they made application during the first round, correct?
Mhm.
Correct.
Yeah, so I don't have I for one, council member, don't have any questions on those. Down to line 13.
Yes, that's we could yeah, I'm okay with allocating the funding of the requested amount. I know that there's a two that number 13 is one that I would also like to look at to increase. And I think the
Okay.
other one was the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center is the one that we had talked about before for senior services. So those are the two that I was looking at, hoping to increase some funding for.
Okay, so if we could share and find some way for the amounts that are in the G column, move them over to where you have them now, and then those two that the council member talked about, just put an asterisk by them so we can come back to them. Those are the two that she'd like to talk about.
Okay.
Sharon, you could color them too, whatever you need, just to
Yeah,
point out.
anyways, so we
Yeah,
don't
So
there
miss
that's
it.
what I did right now, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's
Yes.
Excellent.
the same amounts,
So
right?
let's-
But we want to revisit these two. Okay.
Yes.
Right, then let's go down to the next
Okay.
ones.
Okay.
Okay, wait.
Hold on. Let me screw up. All right.
Okay. So,
So yeah, these are the post-COVID requests. These
Yes,
blue
yeah.
dollars, they're for COVID activities.
Oh, okay. So I
And-
see. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Sharon.
No, and it's for, small business. HUD needs us to have two different allocations. One for micro enterprise, that's between 1 and 5 employees, and then one for small business, that's 6 or above. And so tomorrow night, you'll see at the council meeting from Alex's presentation, I think it's approximately 150 and 50,000.
Mhm.
But that's why I put a note here. This is pending tomorrow night's council decision. And then for rent relief also, sorry, the phone was looking okay earlier. Okay, now that looks better. For the rent relief, you'll see tomorrow night too from our rent relief report to cover the current wait list and also estimating the amount of need that's going to be that we're going to see from the community probably till November, especially, with the eviction moratorium. If that doesn't get extended, we could see a large increase. So based on the past recent rate of assistance allocated, that was the estimate amount.
Okay.
Yeah. And then all the other ones were kind of based on research and
okay, wait. So I want to do, this is going to take a bit longer. So the very first one, I will look to you, council member, because I don't recall that split, but if you say that's what was agreed to at your committee, the subcommittee, I'm fine with it.
Vice Mayor, that wasn't out of the committee. That was actually out of the staff report that's before you for tomorrow night. And that split was based on the types of business we have in our business licenses.
Oh,
the
that's
conclusion
right.
of those that are 5 or less in employees and those that are 6 and more in employees. And that's just a recommended split.
6
Okay,
or more.
so-
It was what? 5 or less?
Yeah, it's 5 or less are the micro
Micro
enterprise employees, and 6 or more are small business.
So is that a
Oh.
requirement from
It's a requirement of,
someone?
yes, it's a requirement of
It's HUD.
CDBG.
Yes,
HUD.
it's HUD regulations.
Oh, okay.
It's actually
Yeah.
fairly,
If
I
you
would say it
intend
is
to
in
have
line with,
both of those
it is in
groups.
line with what the subcommittee was looking at initially, was looking at the smaller employee-based businesses, which were the micro enterprise. I do recall
Right.
quite a bit of discussion early on. So it's in line, but it's something that has not been approved yet.
Okay. I understand that. I remember that conversation, but it is new information for me, but I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm okay with that, Vice Mayor, of how it reads. And
Then I'm fine with it then. So you can, that's fine. The direct aid to the pilot rent relief. I only have one question. Maybe it's of Martin. And it really has to do with, and if I need to be quiet, Martin, can you tell me? It's the letter we got from Chris about the date for rent relief, when we have to stop.
Okay.
Did you see it?
I have not seen it, no.
Oh, okay. It
Yeah.
was simply that the governor's extension goes to June 28th.
Mhm.
And if there's an extension like was mentioned, all these considerations we had to have about if we could actually extend the rent relief, considerations we had to make.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there was an answer in his letter, but considerations that, we just couldn't on our own say we're going to go till November or December. So I'm really looking for an answer, not talking about a position that I have. And so I'm looking at, I don't mind talking about setting aside some dollars until we have that answer. But also I want to be sure that we're in line with whatever the law firm says we should be doing. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. I mean,
Yes,
I think,
if I may, Vice
Oh.
Mayor. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, actually, I chatted with Chris last week, and we confirmed that the eviction moratorium that was extended by the governor and Santa Clara County, it's through July 28th. And that does not
Correct.
stop us from, yes, it does not stop us from providing rent relief. That's just the time when we expect actually more displacement that could occur. So we actually could anticipate more needs for rent relief. Yes,
Right.
but he
But
confirmed, yes, that.
Yeah, but you just
Mhm.
indicated a date beyond that, Sharon. And what I'm looking for is a legal opinion based on the letter we did get of what our limitations are, something that allows us to go beyond that. That's what I'm looking for. And so, like I said, I'm not opposed to setting aside some dollars in the hope. I don't, if we have to petition Sacramento or the federal government that we would like that. I mean, I don't mind taking an active role in that, but since we now have one letter, I'd like one that also says this is an appropriate direction for us to take. And so, Martin, if you can convey that to Chris, I would just feel better going forward that that's something that we would look for.
okay.
And
I'll
if
do
we're
that.
going to take this up next Tuesday, I think that gives us some time. And then maybe you could take a look at his letter now that he has sent us. And it could be the same dollar amount. I mean, I'm not opposed to the dollar amount at all, if that's the projection.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so so for the dollar amounts we've talked about so far for small business and rent relief, Are you looking at the COVID-19 bucket to allocate these, or do you want me to fill that in now, or you want to talk further?
Well, tell me where, council member, I would think it's where it's the most flexible, or where it leaves us with the most flexible
More money.
dollars.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So where does it leave us with the most flexibility? Take it from the pot that leaves us more flexibility.
Okay. All right. I think I would put them in the COVID
Yep.
because they
That's what I
are
thought.
directly COVID. Yeah.
Yep. Goodbye. Good
And
idea.
then this one we'll have to split it up. And part of this depends on the program administration. So I'm going to put an odd number that I had to calculate, and you'll see why. So with this number, now the total at the bottom is exactly 397, but that ties in with the program administration too. So I don't want to get into too much math. I know you're going to be doing calculations all day now. And then the
Not me.
remaining balance
Maybe you and
from
the council
that.
member.
And then the remaining balance, because the prior year funding needs to be used for COVID too. So we thought this would be a good way to, Okay, so if you want to move on to this next one, child advocates.
So I'm looking at all of this, and I am okay actually with all of this. So Vice Mayor, unless you have any objections, like I would, I'm okay with this, the program funding. I just want to see if we have enough money for these wish list numbers.
So, and I'm fine with moving them all over. I just find two things, if I could. Program that benefits. I'm fine with all of them. No questions. Go ahead and put them over.
Okay. Do you want to put them under formula funding, or because we can max out on their CV?
Whichever leaves us with more money.
Yep, that's right. That's exactly what I would say.
All right.
So now our balance on the bottom.
Okay. Yeah, our CV is okay. Our prior year,
I'm getting dizzy looking at that chart move.
Yeah, and we can move money around, not around, but to make sure the total, adds up.
Okay, so then now, Sharon, I would like to go all the way to the top, to the first ones that we allocate, the ones that we said we were going to go back to.
We haven't done the capital projects, and that's where the big dollar amounts are. That's these.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now we're okay, but there could be some tougher decisions here right now because you're looking at these requests.
Right, but I don't want to miss out on allocating money on the first ones. For me, the capital projects are not, I mean, if I had to prioritize them, the ones on the top for me right now are the most important. And then I want to play with what's left for the capital projects. And it's not that much. I mean, for me, the one that I'm really looking for is the domestic violence one, where I would like to allocate at least $50,000 to. So if we go back all the way to the top.
So before she goes there, can I ask if, with all that we've done, we haven't changed that, the 434,000 that were in the hole?
I'm sorry? Yeah.
Maybe I'm reading it wrong.
For the total request, we are over by 434,000 for the total, the request.
So we still have to reduce by 434,000, right?
Right, but we haven't done capital projects.
The capital projects, though.
Okay. Okay, so let's go back up. I'm fine going up.
Okay, and don't forget, right now we have a 66,968 out of the prior year. So
Mhm.
some of the money from this could move over. Some of these,
Okay.
actually
Okay.
the COVID-19, sorry, yeah. Some of
Okay.
these COVID-19 ones.
Okay.
Come.
So if you go up, the Silicon Valley Independent Living Center, I actually saw some of the needs that I wanted in the city of Milpitas. You could unhighlight that for me. I'm good. I was looking for the laptop for the seniors and things like that, but I saw them earlier down below. So I'm good if you want to unhighlight that one. And then
That
I
one?
would, yeah,
Okay.
and then I would like to kindly, for me, I would really want an additional 50,000 if possible, or at least 50,000 allocated for the YWCA for their mental health and domestic violence assistance in Milpitas, if we may.
So, so tell me about the first one again, council member.
I'm sorry, the what?
So you took it, you did need it after all because you saw it someplace else.
Oh
Where was
yeah,
that?
because it was the laptops, the Milpitas Senior Center, because we wanted to fund the laptops for the seniors, and there was another one down there that we had talked about giving it to the Silicon Valley Independent Center, right here, these two, the laptops and the city nutrition program. But I saw it down there, so I'm okay with, that's why I was okay with unhighlighting it.
Okay, so so if you can go back up, so so I know that there's a program with Aruba, and it's really and I don't know if Chris or Cheryl are there, but they're working with the school district to get instruments out to the students and to the seniors. The connectivity they have with Aruba, but it's the instruments they might need. So I will wait for them to speak up to that. But what I'm looking at, the YWCA Silicon Valley. So Steve, in the changes being made in Park and Rec, tell me what is happening with I always call it the Teen Center. I know you have a different name for it, but what is happening there?
Well, you're asking for, is there reevaluation or is it continuing on? Is that what you're asking? Is the program,
because
what's the
as I
status of
look
the program?
because as I look at what the council member is asking for, and I agree with this, so I've sort of hinted at, I keep reading that park and recreation departments are going more toward social service delivery systems in cities. And so I think what I'm seeing being asked for is a good move in that direction to partner with a park and rec that is going in that same direction. So I'm just trying to see if that's what we're doing, or that's what you're looking at, or you're considering it. So it would be a good investment, or you're really not, or that's, so Bob, just be quiet and ask a different question.
No, I think it's good. I think I've got Renee on.
I'm on no, Bob. You laughed.
I'm going to call Renee if we can bring Renee up.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, thank you.
I didn't even know she's out there.
All right. So we'll get the direct answer here.
Yeah. So it's a good question, and we have been, and it was in the budget that you City Council approved, that we are looking for more nonprofit partners to provide those social services and mental health care to the teens and families in Milpitas just in general. So we have worked with Cassie. We're going to continue to work with Cassie. But we also know that there's groups like NAMI, Santa Clara County, and the YWCA that we can partner with and bring services to the community. So I hope that helps.
Yeah,
actually,
so
Bob, I like your answer. I mean, I like your question because now it got me thinking something else. Renee, what's like the average, I guess, programming I'm trying to think of, right? Like, I think of like a staff member, entry staff member that could provide services is usually about what, like $60,000, $70,000. Is that?
If you're looking at a program coordinator fully loaded, it's a little bit more than that. It's in the 100,000 range.
Oh, wow.
So, but we do already have approved and moving forward with a social services coordinator. And so that person would be working with these nonprofit groups to expand services because they are needed. I think that will be super beneficial. We have our Suicide Prevention Task Force, acronymed HOPE, helping others process emotions, that would be able to navigate and work with these nonprofits. There's resources out there. We're putting that team together right now to really identify what those resources are and then get more of them here in Milpitas.
Okay, because what I want to make sure is that this money is not spent only on staff, that it's actually spent on services. That would be my concern.
Yeah, and our general budget funds the city staff. This would be separate as far as.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
So this is what I would ask, if you're okay with it, council members. I think a reassessment, Steve, of the teen center, just the way, not so much the teen center, but the offerings we have there. I like the idea of, I worked with the YWCA when I was with Evergreen Elementary School. They offered those programs on our schools there. And they were great programs, and I would recommend them at every school district. Number one. Number two, I think if we reassessed the teen center in its current configuration into something different, I think the council member has the right idea. There are some things that we can do as a city. There's some things that a nonprofit can do, and there's some things that the school district can do. So I'd like to suggest that number be, I agree it should be 50,000. And then a conversation between now and next Tuesday with the school district to see what else we can do, because that is the adults and children. That really is a whole community support system. And then bring that forward. But the concept, as I hear it, is one that we can bring from all three different directions, support to the residents of the city. So, council member, I think that's a great idea. So if we can do that, is that possible, Sharon? I think Sharon fell asleep, and I don't blame you. I fell asleep when I talked.
Her audio must be off. Sharon?
Okay.
I'm here again. Sorry, I lost you guys for 2 seconds.
Oh, it's council member. Okay.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know I was muted. I kept talking.
Yeah, that's what we figured.
Yeah, then I realized I was muted. Yes, because for the prior year COVID, we have the 66,000.
Okay.
So the 50.
So if we put,
Mm-hmm.
So if we put 40,000 in there, that'll be an even 50. But then we can go ask the school district and then look at how we can change the teen center to have really a holistic approach. And actually, as I'm listening, I think the council member has a better concept, an idea of how that all should look, and talk to her about that concept, and then bring that not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday as part of this, and talk to the school district, because I haven't heard them jump in yet. So I just think it's that would be a good use of the dollars, and it would be youth, children, and adults.
Okay. So am I hearing 50,000 for school district rather than YWCA?
No. For the for the YWCA.
Okay.
At least that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I like that. I like where this is going with that.
Okay.
So what's the magical numbers left on the bottom?
Yeah.
Like the bottom
and so-
now.
Yeah. So I noticed that I see that Chris is on the line, and so you may want to, Chris, you may just want to ask him if he's interested in that kind of conversation. So Chris, do you? Chris? So I don't know when I say that. I just don't want to speak out of turn. Oh, he's not in the meeting. Oh, so then if you make sure, Sharon, to go back and talk to him, I'd appreciate it. Okay. So
Yes.
let's go to.
So just really quick on the math part, because the prior year funding has a remaining 26,000 here that has to be for COVID-19. We can take any one of these numbers to make up that balance there.
Well,
You mean
Sharon,
added?
Oh, yeah. So, sorry. So we can add the balance. Okay. So I'm sorry. Is that mean to add what balance? I just want to see the number.
You know, can I say something real quick?
Yes.
Yeah.
I noticed that the council members in a car looking down at us every now and then, and it scares me just a little bit. So I want to make sure she's safe.
Oh, I'm good now. Thank you.
Okay. We won't do anything. Yeah, we won't do anything without your approval. So do go ahead now. Go ahead. I know that she said it was 26,000. We could add up on the top.
Yes. So I basically split up the 50,000 that I have requested from Project Sentinel, so that now you can see both CV and prior years, we're done.
Okay.
So now it's
Okay.
the formula funding. Yes, we still have this balance left and all of the capital requests to review.
Okay. And the capital doesn't have to stay in capital, correct?
Doesn't have to stay in capital, correct?
Okay. So the rebuilding together in Sunny Hills, the 20 for Terrace Gardens. Wait. Oh, let me back up. So the very first one is Life Moves. Okay, I'm going to come back. So you're going to have to walk me through them so I don't mess them up. There's capital, there's rebuilding. I'm going to go up to the bottom so it's easier for me. Building together 200 for I apologize. You're gonna have to walk them through me. Walk through them for me.
Okay, no problem. So Rebuilding Together had applied for 200,000 to provide home repairs, rehabilitation work, accessibility and mobility services for low-income homeowners.
Yeah.
Yes, and then we also had reached out to Rebuilding Together as well as the owners of Sunny Hills to see if there's a way that we can collaborate on the capital improvements at the development. So that's another 200,000 there for roof replacement at the project. And
would
that
help.
came in after the original application. That's the only reason it's green. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Terrace Gardens applied for 20,000 for 2 commercial ovens. And Life
Okay.
Moves is 300,000. Yeah.
Okay. So, are you still with us, council member?
Yes, yes, I am. I'm on my earbuds, so if I go mute, please check on me. That I don't want to lose you guys. But
Okay.
So I guess my question with this one is the capital improvements. They don't have to be capital improvements, right? We had said. I know that Sunny Hills in itself. Where are we at with just that whole complex? Because is there a way to put in money for that cause? Because I know that's coming up in 5 years, right? Is there any way we could use some of this funding to help them with that? Or is that something totally separate?
That's something that we're exploring, and that's one of the entry here. Because we reached out to Rebuilding Together, who usually their charter actually is to repair homes. But they've talked to their executive board, and they're supportive of working on the apartment project. And also, we also connected with the owner and Rebuilding Together all together about what kind of assistance we can provide to the project. And that's what we have listed is roof replacement for the existing buildings at $200,000.
And this is this is Martin. Just to note the HUD covenant that the city has with Sunny Hills, the owner. So the payments that the city makes, it's to reimburse capital improvements and repairs. That's what it states in the agreement.
So
okay.
yeah. So you're right, Councilmember. We can use this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I'm okay with that. The other one that I wanted to somehow, I know we talked about was providing some assistance for our unhoused population, if that was either vouchers or I'm not too sure at this point. All I know is our unhoused population is going up. So I'm not sure if we have some leftover money to do any of that with Life Moves, where instead of doing actual construction, they're maybe doing some reimbursement with vouchers. I mean, or giving out vouchers. Sorry, not reimbursement. Giving out the vouchers to house them. It just feels like nothing has moved on that item of need.
So if I may, so what I'm hearing, Sharon, is that the Rebuilding Together, both those programs are fine. Terrace Gardens and their commercial, the 2 commercial ovens, I think you brought forward before, and we said yes before on those.
Right.
The Life Moves.
The Life over already, though.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
So the Life Moves at 300,000. I think I'm on record before saying those aren't dollars I wanted, was supporting to put there. And I've not changed my position at least. But I think what we can do is, because I remembered hearing at least 2 of the council members felt that since they serviced some residents of Milpitas, that some dollars there needed to go. We also need to reduce that $434,000. And I still think that there needs to be a discussion with MUSD. They have community nutrition support for the upcoming year. I think the discussion you're going to have with them about mental health and community support and how that fits in with our park and rec and any type of financial aid and childcare, and especially with the homeless population they have of children coming to school and the family units that go with them. I think that that 300,000 needs to be set aside for now. Let you have that discussion, and if we've done all of that and that's the only amount that's undefined, I think that's okay to take that to council and say, here's the part that we need to still talk about. Because that's 98% of the work. And
I agree.
and I think that's a good way to take it.
Mm-hmm. So right now our balance under the formula funding is $245,205. Yes. So how would you like to fill out?
No. So I think you have the 420,000 that you have for rebuilding together at Terrace Gardens, and then the 300,000 I think is a set aside for us to discuss. If we're going to put dollars towards life moves, and if so, how much, and the discussions that you folks will have with MUSD, and then what discussions will be with what services we're going to have with the teen center and what we're going to do with homelessness, and then bring those back, not tomorrow, but the next Tuesday, and let's have council have all of these other recommendations, and then we'll talk about those last few.
Okay, but keep in mind, now we are already over, because right now there's 245, and if I put down 200 for rebuilding together, right, and another 200 for Sunny Hills, and another 20,000 for Terrace Gardens, we're over, 174,000 oversubscribed.
And is there dollars in the other categories at all? No, because you zeroed them out, right?
No, because these were already just list everything. Yes.
Sure, but we did save dollars in the housing, right?
Say it again.
We did save dollars in housing dollars, right?
By putting in program administration, we're saving general fund. Yes.
Okay, but there's dollars in housing that we would have spent. So the question normally comes down: are there other ways to either refine these dollars, and or do we say this first year out we're going to put some dollars in from housing still, not from other accounts, but from housing, and then look at trying to winnow down some of these numbers to a more so that we zero out the bottom. But at this point, I think that's a conversation for the five of us, mostly because there's some programs here, and I'll give you an example. And I can't go all the way up, but the one for child advocates of Silicon Valley, and the ones for foster youth, I know they can get additional dollars. They can get that $10,000 someplace else. That is an exceptional program that I know other foundations would give them those dollars. So that's just one. I just think what we need to do now is we're still, I think, 97 to 98% there. I think the rest of the council should really help us get there so we can see what they really think is or are the most important things moving forward. And if you take a look at how many dollars, we just covered and what we need to reduce, I'm sure that your conversations are going to help reduce it even more. And I think that's the important part. So I'm feeling comfortable that I'm actually surprised we got this far. So Steve, you tell me, because this is now, the last 3% is the art part. The science part's done. It's the conversations of so if I took a look at some of these, the question is going through and talking to some of these persons on, are these the dollars they really need, or is there a way to look at it differently? Things of that sort. And if these are the numbers that stand, and I'm not saying that they need to change. If these are the numbers that stand, then this is what we go to council with, because I don't want anybody to change anything that just to make them fit. Let's have the conversation with all 5 of them.
Okay, what staff could do is, it's almost like having a note comment column in J, and for the council meeting, we could have this. Sharon, this is going to be on your staff. What happens with all of these? What's going on with all these? If we go back, if any of these dropped, what happens? Or if any of these were reduced, what happens? And then am I also hearing that, I know that larger number down below, assuming that one's out, or at least assuming the deficit we have now, if you want staff to take a look at how close we can get to getting that balanced through these columns, or through column C, is that what you're asking staff to do? And of course, our discussions with, you said discussions with MUSD. Okay. Sharon, I'm kind of committing for you. Does that sound reasonable?
Well, I guess now, so next Tuesday, we could have this, it's almost like a study session with the council, because we need all these numbers finalized, to prepare the annual action plan, and then have that available for public comment for at least 5 days, and then go to the council. So, that means we will not be able to do the annual action plan right now, right? Because we're going to have another discussion with the full council next Tuesday. And then after that discussion is when we can start preparing the amended annual action plan, a draft the 2021 annual action plan, and then the consolidated plan also, and citizen participation. And then it will be the meeting after that.
So
that we'll be able to do have all those documents for council approval to submit to HUD.
So Sharon, where you have the most flexibility is in those dollars down at the bottom, right? In the capital.
Can you scroll down, Sharon?
Yeah.
So the 2 places you have the most flexibility are in capital projects and administration. I would suspect that you can find $174,000 without touching any of the programs on top in those 2.
So Sharon, we're going to look at the Project Sentinel under administration, and then the numbers above.
So you mean
the programs are the ones that hit the people.
So we're looking at reducing some of the capital projects and
Project Sentinel.
That would be my just listening to you sharing your timeline. If what you're saying is you need to bring a recommendation on next Tuesday and not a discussion. The only place you can do that without harming direct recipients of the program, I think, are those two. But that's just my view. But I see the time, and I know that the council member has to leave a minute ago. So is that enough direction, do you think, Steve?
It is. Thank you very
Okay.
much. That last 3 minutes was very helpful.
Okay.
It directed us down. It directed us down to the capital projects.
Okay.
Yeah,
Council member?
I agree. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's two of us. Is there any comment? If there's nothing else, I want to be able to say thank you all very much. So I didn't get any text from Rochelle, so I want to thank you. I want to be able to adjourn the meeting. Thank you for all the work that was done. This was great. I really understand it much more now than before, and I thought I understood it before. And council member, I want to thank you for all the thought you put into the delivery of services to the residents, because as I think about it, a holistic approach really is the best approach. So with that, thank you all very much. Have a good evening. I have 3 Zoom meetings at 7 o'clock. I'm not quite sure I'm going to do that, but
It's multitasking.
that's right. That's right. So I'll talk to you all later. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.